The cops thought they'd caught just another trespasser, forcing him to pick up trash under the blazing sun while they smirked with pride. But they had no clue who he really was until a black SUV rolled out of the woods. What happened next turned their world upside down. Let's start from the beginning. It was one of those summer days that felt like the air had turned into a warm blanket, stifling but oddly comforting. The cicadas were buzzing like they just had way too much caffeine, and the sun was throwing heat like it had a grudge. 54-year-old Daniel Carter didn't mind, though. With his simple t-shirt, worn jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days, he was the picture of a man who enjoyed life's simpler pleasures. Short, stocky, with a head of salt and pepper hair that made him look like wisdom personified, Daniel carried himself with the kind of quiet confidence that made people notice him even if he wasn't trying to stand out. Daniel had lived in this small, sleepy town in the heart of a strict state for decades, the kind of place where folks kept their curtains drawn and their noses in everyone else's business. The laws here, let's just say they weren't made for people like Daniel. And though he usually kept his head down, today he was just trying to enjoy the woods. The forest was Daniel's escape, a place where he could think, clear his mind, and leave the noise of the world behind. The tall trees stood like sentinels, their shadows offering a cool refuge from the sun. He was lost in thought, stepping lightly along the trail he knew like the back of his hand, when a sudden wail of sirens shattered the peace. "Hey, you there!" a voice barked, sharp enough to cut through the cicadas' chorus. Daniel turned, calm as ever, to see a police cruiser pulling up. The officer stepping out looked like he'd been cast straight out of a bad cop drama. Officer Mike Larson, mid-30s, lean, with a grin that was more predator than pleasant, walked toward Daniel like he owned the place. Behind him, a younger officer, Ryan, tagged along, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Something wrong?" Daniel asked, his voice steady but curious. Mike didn't answer immediately. He was sizing Daniel up, his eyes narrowing as if trying to find a reason to escalate things. "Something wrong? You're damn right there's something wrong," Mike finally spat, stepping closer. "This here's private property and you're trespassing. You got a permit to be wandering around." Daniel frowned. Private property? He'd walked this trail for years and never seen so much as a keep out sign. "Sorry, officer. I didn't see any signs. I've been walking here for ages." "Yeah, well, maybe it's time someone taught you the rules." Mike cut him off, his grin widening into something nastier. He reached into the back of the cruiser and tossed a large black trash bag onto the ground in front of Daniel. "Let me make it real simple for you," Mike said, leaning in until they were almost eye to eye. "Either you pick that up and start cleaning, or I write you up for trespassing. Your call, pal." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he kept his cool. He wasn't about to let this officer see him lose his composure. With a slow nod, he bent down, picked up the bag, and started walking the trail again, this time with Mike and Ryan following close behind like two overzealous babysitters. The task itself wasn't hard, but the humiliation was suffocating. Every step, every piece of trash he picked up felt like a small stab at his dignity. And Mike, he wasn't about to let the opportunity for a power trip pass him by. "Yeah, that's it. Pick up every little piece," Mike called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "Maybe next time you'll think twice about strolling where you don't belong." Daniel didn't respond. He kept his head down, focused on filling the bag, but every fiber of his being screamed for him to push back. Not now, though. Not here. Ryan, the younger officer, trailed behind Mike, his body language practically shouting discomfort. He glanced at Daniel every now and then, his eyes darting away quickly whenever Daniel looked back. The forest, once a place of peace, now felt oppressive. The trees seemed to close in, their branches like crooked fingers pointing at the absurdity of the scene. Yet through it all, Daniel remained composed. He wasn't a man to act on impulse, not when there were better ways to make a point. With each step, as the weight of the trash bag grew, so did Daniel's resolve. He might have been forced into this degrading task, but the wheels in his mind were already turning. Mike Larson thought he was in control, but he had no idea who he was messing with. Daniel tightened his grip on the bag, his mind focused on one thought. This wasn't over. The sun wasn't just shining. It was practically grilling everything in its path. Sweat trickled down Daniel's back as he bent over, for what felt like the 100th time, to pick up a crumpled soda can. The black trash bag was heavier now, dragging against the ground as if mocking him. Every motion was deliberate, not because he wanted to take his time, but because every fiber of his being refused to give Mike Larson the satisfaction of seeing him rush. "Come on, Grandpa." Mike's voice sliced through the stillness, his tone oozing impatience. "You think I got all day to babysit you? Pick it up. My lunch isn't going to wait forever." Daniel straightened up slowly, wiping his brow with the back of his hand, his calm gaze locked onto Mike. The kind of stare that could silence a room. But Mike wasn't the type to notice subtle warnings. "You think this is the right way to handle this?" Daniel finally asked, his voice calm but edged with steel.